Try to imagine an unspoiled kingdom, with breathtaking views of green valleys, crystal clear rivers, forests, rich wildlife, and paradisiacal landscapes. And no, we are not talking about a Caribbean country or a protected forest reserve. We are talking about the most isolated country in the world, Bhutan. Today, you are going to learn about the history of this country that measures the nation's happiness, plus some interesting facts. Did you know that this country uses cannabis to feed its livestock? Did you know that images of the male genital organ adorn the facades of homes and businesses? Also, did you know that this country is considered the happiest in the world and even has a happiness indicator? Bhutan, known as the Kingdom of the Thunder Dragon, is a country nestled in the Himalayan mountain range in South Asia, located between India and China. Its territory is slightly small, and its population is around 800,000 inhabitants, with the capital Thimphu. The country was completely isolated from other countries until the mid-1960s, and is still a very demanding destination for visitors. Thanks to this, the country maintains its traditions and has a virtually untouched nature. Bhutan's openness to the world is very recent, and the preservation of Bhutanese culture has meant that the country has been a latecomer to certain consumer goods. One example is television, which arrived in the country during the 1998 World Cup, and internet arrived almost in 2010. In fact, this place is almost a sanctuary. Not in vain is it considered the last Eden of the world. There are no traffic lights, everyone has access to healthcare, and crime rates are practically null. And speaking of health and tradition, there is a sacred remedy called Pang Bi rib. The whole country knows this medicine, considered extremely valuable. And what is its composition? It is a mixture of medicinal herbs and, believe it or not, shavings from the skull of a monk who lived in the region a few centuries ago. The country is rich in mineral resources. Its economy is based on agriculture and livestock, which support 90% of the population, as well as the sale of hydroelectric power to India. And talking of livestock and agriculture, here's something interesting. Did you know that marijuana grows everywhere in the country, like bushes and weeds? It is said that, for decades, farmers fed marijuana to cattle and pigs with the excuse that it helped to whet the animals' appetites. Curious, isn't it? The country maintains a strong religious connection, and Buddhism is the predominant religion and is considered an important part of the culture, daily life, and national identity. In addition to unspoiled nature, the country is home to countless temples and monasteries, and obviously, the postcard in this regard is the Takshan Monastery, built at the foot of a mountain, 3,000 meters above sea level. Buddha was never in Bhutan, but his influence is so intense that there is one monk for every 100 inhabitants in this country, where an impressive calm reigns. It is the home of prayer flags, and they are scattered all over the territory, especially at the highest points of cities or near temples and monasteries. The idea is that when the wind blows, the blessings will spread throughout the world. These flags are known as lungta and are made of colored cloth and carry Buddhist prayers and mantras, each color representing 5 elements of Chinese theory. The white ones, for example, are a tribute to loved ones who have passed away. The belief is so strong that it also crosses Bhutan's borders. Mount Everest, for example, is full of prayer flags. As the highest point in the world, prayers would reach all parts of the earth. Another curiosity of this country full of beliefs is that it is quite common to see phallic images painted on the walls of buildings throughout the country. It all started with a religious leader named Drukpa Kunli, or the Divine Madman, who became famous for his peculiar methods of leading his followers, mainly women, to enlightenment. Legend has it that he brought more than 5,000 women to the peak of life with his powerful genitals. Today he is venerated as the saint of fertility, and a monastery named Chimilakang has been dedicated in his honor. Pilgrims from all over the world with childbearing difficulties come to this monastery to receive a blessing. The monks there say a prayer, take a wooden penis and place it on the woman's head to bless her. But what is really surprising is that this unusual monk is not credited with bringing the 5,000 women to climax, but with subduing a demon with his powerful penis, known locally as the Flaming Thunderbolt. The country is ruled by a constitutional monarchy, led by King Jigme Kesar. However, the history of the royal family is a bit more complex, and, before becoming a haven of tranquility, it went through some conflicts. The earliest records of the nation date back to the 7th century, when the Tibetan king Songtsen Gampo built the first Buddhist temples in the Paro and Bumthang valleys. But the real formation of the nation began in the 17th century, when a prince fleeing Tibet unified his fiefdoms, built imposing fortresses called dzongs to protect himself from invasion, and thus became the first Shabdrung, or he who rises above the rest. Always isolated, the country only maintained relations with a few neighbors. But with the arrival of the British in India in the 19th century, conflicts arose that led to the Dwar War, and the country was on the verge of separation. Then emerged the powerful figure of Ugyen Wangchuck, who already dominated some regions of Bhutan, expelled the opposition, and in 1907 was crowned king. As king, he was a successful leader, ruling the country masterfully for almost 2 decades. But his son, the second king, was a good man, but seemed more motivated to practice archery than to rule the country. In defense of the archery king, it should be noted that archery is the most popular sport throughout the country, and there are even archery matches. Today there are 2 types of tournaments: those played with bamboo bows, made in the traditional way, and those using imported carbon fiber bows. But let's go back to the kings. The third king of the dynasty, unlike his archer father, made a great difference and became known as the King of Modernization. Thanks to his excellent relations with India, he had access to vaccines and other medical and sanitary measures that caused the population to almost double its average life expectancy, which at the time was no more than 30-something years. However, this friendship with India also brought him a vice: the habit of smoking, and by coincidence of fate, he ended up dying too soon at the age of 30. And the reason? Lung cancer. Another curiosity about this third king is that one of the country's priorities was to be recognized internationally. Therefore, Bhutan began to try to become a member of international organizations. The first international organization of which Bhutan became a member was the Universal Postal Union in 1969, a specialized agency of the United Nations that coordinates matters related to international postal services. But it was not enough to be a member. You had to make yourself known. Bhutan then began to create high-relief stamps, some in vinyl that reproduced music, others in rubber, leather, among others. The creation of stamps opened the door to international recognition. This helped Bhutan greatly when it became a member of the United Nations in 1971. Another curious fact about stamps, and this time not postage stamps, is that a store-bought stamp can be used to seal engagements. Don't you understand? Let me explain. Bhutan continues to cultivate the culture of trust, so there is none of the bureaucracy here that we are used to when it comes to contracts, notarization, or authentication. In Bhutan, for a document to be legal, the legal seal is enough, which, placed on a piece of paper and signed on top, has the same value as a notarized document. Can you imagine? When the third king died, his son Jigme Kesar Wangchuck was beginning his first apprenticeship as a ruler. And yes, you heard right. We are talking about apprentice princes. Every heir to the throne has to live and manage one of the country's fortresses for a year. After the death of his father, he had to take over in a hurry, at the age of only 17. Under great pressure, he strove to understand and serve Bhutan to the best of his ability. Very young, during an interview with a British newspaper, when asked what was the main product Bhutan produced, he replied firmly that more important than products was to see his people produce happiness, that this was the main value of the country. Thus was born the GIH, gross inner happiness. And not in vain this pearl hidden in the Himalayas became known as the country of happiness. In the 1970s, he established the pillars of the happiness indicator: sustainable economic development, cultural preservation, environmental conservation, and good governance, which were later subdivided into 9 areas. He also banned tobacco production in the country in the name of social good, and also with the justification of protecting the environment by preventing fires. And in fact, perhaps it is a trauma because of what happened to his father. On the other hand, a large part of the population chews betel leaves wrapped in doma, which is a dried fruit imported from India. Although natural, they are very addictive and give the teeth a rather frightening reddish appearance. In 2006, after 34 years of reign, the fourth king of Bhutan made a historic decision. He abdicated in favor of his son. His abdication, despite leaving the people in tears, brought with it two precious gifts for the country according to the monarch himself: the arrival of a new leader, his son, and also the arrival of democracy with the beginning of a constitutional monarchy with elections for prime minister. Jigme, the current king of Bhutan, was crowned in November 2008, making him the youngest monarch in the world at that time. Under the influence of astrological issues, his coronation was timed according to astral alignments. In the local culture, nothing is done without prior consultation with the monks, who govern almost everything in people's lives according to the position of the stars. The best date to get engaged, get married, travel, change the roof of the house, or baptize children. In this magical land, the story of the new king takes on fairy tale overtones with his marriage to a commoner schoolgirl and the birth of his first heir, a cute baby. Today the family has grown and the couple has another child. The new king follows in his father's footsteps, dedicating himself to maintaining joy in a country facing its own challenges. In addition to his unassuming image in 2019, he drew much attention for his humanitarian action when he lent his private plane to save the first case of coronavirus infection in Bhutan. A 76-year-old American tourist started feeling unwell and was diagnosed with the virus. Isolated in the country for logistical reasons in a hospital ward, the king, upon learning of the situation, arranged for deliveries, including pajamas and a silk bedspread, to ensure the patient's comfort. As the American's condition worsened and the expected aid was days away, the king made a surprise move by equipping his plane with the most advanced medical technology available and flying the man to the United States, thus saving his life. Did you know the country of happiness? Tell us what you thought of it. If you like this content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fun facts. Thanks to all of you who have joined us, and see you next time.